I used to weigh 270 pounds, but I'm not the only woman who's ever struggled with their weight. Over 35 million women in North America weigh over 200 pounds. So after losing 110 pounds, I feel like it's my responsibility to send the elevator back down and share what I've learned. I've made hundreds, if not thousands, of mistakes on my journey to becoming fit and healthy. But in this video, I'm going to share the 9 most costly mistakes that I'll never make again. And if you want to get healthy and fit and stay that way, you should never make them either. Which brings me to number 1, riding the insulin roller coaster off into the sunset. In past attempts to lose weight, a typical day usually looked like this. We don't eat breakfast because that's how we're going to cut calories, and less is more, right? But really, less is just more later in the day. Lunchtime rolls around and you try to eat something healthy like a salad, but definitely I was not prioritizing protein in the way that I should be. Then on a good day when I wasn't craving a sweet treat and stopped for something on the way home, I'd get home, usually snack on something from the pantry while trying to make a healthy version of whatever it was for dinner, hopefully, get that cleaned up, sit down for some me time once you get the kids to bed, which turns into a social media scroll, watching some kind of trash reality TV show while either eating chips or ice cream or chocolate bars, or using Oreos to scoop out the peanut butter. Yeah, I've done that. And then I would be so mad at myself that I would just continue to eat. And in my head, it was like,
well, let's do it real bad. So tomorrow is a fresh start, and maybe we've eaten all of the Oreos in the house by that point, and then there'll be none to eat tomorrow.
But we all know tomorrow on the way home, I'd stop and buy more. Probably because I didn't eat breakfast, and then I was craving something by the time I was done work. Stop and get Oreos on the way home because I ate them all last night. It's a vicious cycle, and then the cycle just repeats over and over, and you think, I'll start tomorrow. Tomorrow's a new day, and you have the best intentions at the start of the day, but by the time the decision fatigue sets in and you're pissed off for whatever reason or resenting whoever, and then you just eat your feelings. Another thing that was terrible for me was treats in the office. I was working as a dental assistant, and patients would bring in donuts, or the Danish Oven, the best bakery in town, was right across the back alley, so we often had donuts in the lunchroom, and free donuts are delicious. Even though they're free, they're not free in your calorie budget for the day. But that would send me on an insulin roller coaster as well, because I hadn't eaten anything, I have a sugary donut, spike my blood sugar, there's no fiber in there, crashes back down, I want to eat something else sweet, and by the time you leave work, you stop for a sweet treat, it's just all downhill from there. When you eat foods that are high in sugar or refined carbs, white bread, bagels, muffins, chips, ice cream, juice, soda, frappa-lappa ding-dongs, I could go on. It spikes your blood sugar. Your blood sugar is the amount of sugar that's floating around in your bloodstream. Pretty self-explanatory, right? So when that spikes, your body sends out insulin to deal with the sugar. Insulin is a hormone. Think of it like your body's cleanup crew. Its job is to take the sugar out of your blood and move it into your cells. The problem is, after a big spike, the cleanup crew is working so hard, sometimes they overshoot, which brings your blood sugar down low into a crash, which leaves you craving more sugar to bring it back up, at least to baseline. But then we overshoot with the donuts and bring her back up over and over and over. So when you have that crash, your brain sends out an urgent signal to replace the sugar, the same thing that jacked it up in the first place. Spike, crash, crave, repeat. It's a vicious cycle. You're not hungry because you lack willpower, and you might not even be hungry. It's probably just a craving. You're having these cravings because the food you just ate set off a chemical reaction shitstorm in your body. Food is supposed to hold you over for 3 to 5 hours without the drama. If you're hungry or having cravings within an hour of eating, your meal was built wrong. The fix is to build every meal around protein, fat, and fiber. These 3 things slow how fast sugar enters your bloodstream. A smaller spike equals a smaller cleanup response, which equals no crash and no cravings. Smooth and steady. Lean meats, vegetables, fruit, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, egg whites, things like this should be the basis of your meals. Start every meal with protein and build it from there. Which brings me to number 2, eating in a deficit of more than 500 calories. Often you're just asking for trouble. Years ago, before I even ever got to my max capacity, I decided to buy a wedding dress that was 2 sizes too small. Sounded like a good idea at the time. A couple months before I was getting married, it wasn't a good idea anymore. I was taking dental assisting at the time, trying to plan a wedding, still working a part-time job, and on top of that, trying to lose 20 pounds. So my diet consisted of a piece of brown toast for breakfast with some peanut butter on it. I'd have a few goldfish as a snack in between class at school. Then on my lunch hour, I'd have a protein smoothie. I believe it was Visalis at the time, which from what I recall, looking back now, really wasn't that high in protein. It was probably mostly carbs because it was marketed as like a superfood meal replacement. But I don't have the nutritional stats on it at this moment. I just know it wasn't that many calories. And then on top of that, I'd go down to the gym for whatever 10 days to ab or beach body abs or whatever class they had going on. And then the rest of that time, I would run on the treadmill. This is terrible. I'm like having flashbacks here. After I learned that I really still didn't like running, I actually started rowing and developed a love for rowing, which is really a full body workout, but I'm not going to get into that right now. Then I'd go home quick, throw some supper into a container, and head off to work. My supper consisted of a chicken breast and a few mini carrots. That's generally what every day looked like. It was very minimal calories, a high output, and a high stress load. So I know what you're all wondering. Did the dress fit? Yeah, it did. But I didn't feel amazing. And it set me up for a massive rebound. Like I said, I wasn't at max capacity yet then, I was after. So a calorie deficit just means you're eating less calories than your body is burning in a day. That gap in energy is how fat loss happens. When you're in an extreme deficit and you're not doing the smart things like resistance training and focusing on protein, your body needs energy from somewhere and it's going to start to break down your muscle tissue. Muscle is expensive for the body to maintain. So when calories are too low, it starts dismantling it. You lose the tissue that burns calories and keep the tissue that you were trying to get rid of, the fat tissue. Research on people in extreme calorie deficits found that they lost muscle tissue alongside the fat tissue. And then when they couldn't keep it all together anymore, they gained back the fat tissue and not the muscle tissue. So they finished in a worse place metabolically than they were when they started. And the result of this, a slower metabolism, softer body, and fat loss that gets harder every time you try. If you want to find your TDEE, or your total daily energy expenditure, you can use our free Badass Babe calorie calculator, and I'll link it below. And if you enter all your information and what your goals are, it's going to give you what your total energy expenditure is for the day, and then what your deficit should be based on the information you entered and your goals. If you're hitting that number and not losing fat, the answer is not eat less. It's take a look at the accuracy of what you were eating, and was the amount you said you were moving accurate, or is it still accurate? Often clarity on one of those two things is the answer, not just eating less. Which brings me to number 3, overeating healthy food. Sometimes we fall into this trap of,
well, I'm eating healthy. I don't know why I'm not making progress.
But even if you're eating healthy foods, you still need to be in a calorie deficit to lose fat. I was just sharing this story earlier today. When I was prepping for my bodybuilding show, I had these protein balls. It came in a pack of 2, and the nutritional information on the back of the package was actually for 1. I didn't read close enough, and I thought it was for both of them. And it was 182 calories. So I would eat them both. And then sometimes I'd be like, what's one more package of them? It's only 182 calories. And like, I was a good girl today. I did good girl things. I can fit this in. Because of those mistakes that I was unknowingly making, sort of, because like I knew I was eating an extra package, but I thought it was only 182 calories extra, and I thought that 2 of them was 182 calories, not 1 of them. So 3 times 182 is like 500 and something. I was eating 500 calories more than I was like knew that I was, or like was letting myself be aware of, and then beating myself up on why I wasn't making progress. And the rest of my food was healthy. It's like chicken and vegetables and extra lean ground beef and vegetables, or turkey and vegetables, and a healthy fat source like avocado or sometimes eggs, things like that. So it was all healthy foods that I was eating, but I wasn't making progress. Now, you might be doing this with like a handful of trail mix, or a little bite of something here, or a lick or a taste of something there. And if you're in a 500 calorie deficit, which is reasonable, before you know it, you've eaten your way right out of that and you're into a surplus. Healthy describes the quality of food. It has nothing to do with how many calories are in it. A handful of almonds is 170 calories. A slice of white bread is 80. The handful of almonds is nutritionally healthier, but it has more than twice the calories. So it seems like you're making a healthy choice, but you're consuming a lot more calories than you maybe realize, especially if you're not weighing in grams and tracking. With something like the almonds, the reason comes down to the fat content. And no, the fat in almonds is not bad for you, but fat is over twice as calorically dense as protein and carbs. Protein and carbs are each 4 calories per gram, where fat is 9 calories per gram. So anything that's higher in fat is going to be pretty high in calories. So foods that are high in fat, like nuts and seeds, avocado, olive oil, coconut oil, butter, cheese, salmon, some cuts of beef, they're going to pack a lot more calories into a smaller amount of food. They're healthy, but they make it very easy to overeat calories without really being aware of it. A weighed serving of peanut butter is 15 grams, and that's, depending on the peanut butter, 90 to 100 calories. Most people, my previous self included, will scoop out 2 to 3 tablespoons without even thinking about it and call it a little peanut butter. That's like 270 to 300 calories on your plate before you even have anything else. And it's like a small amount. That's not going to keep you full. This same trap shows up in things like granola, acai bowls, fruit juices, and a lot of other things marketed with the health halo like clean, natural, organic. A green smoothie with a couple bananas, almond butter, oat milk, and a scoop of protein powder can easily add up to over 600 calories. Clean food, too many calories, no fat loss. I would challenge you to weigh and track your food for 30 days. Heck, even 3 days, a week, somewhere in there. You can eat nothing but whole foods and still be in a caloric surplus. The numbers will surprise you. If you do the challenge, come back and type it in the comments what you found out. Which brings me to point 4, using cardio to burn fat. I already told you about my pre-wedding horror story, where I was using cardio to attempt to burn fat or lose weight. So that carried on afterwards too, when I started gaining weight back again, inevitably, because I hadn't set myself up for success. And I would do things like eat something shitty for lunch or as a snack or craving or binge or whatever in the evening, and then get up in the morning before the kids were up and try to make myself run on the treadmill to burn 300 calories or whatever I deemed acceptable penance for my sins the night before. But here's the thing, cardio is great for your heart health. It's not the tool for fat loss. And I get it. It's fun to see the numbers, like how many calories can I burn in this session? But guess what? Those aren't accurate. Fitness trackers overestimate your caloric burn by up to 93%. That number on your watch after a workout is not accurate. Now, it might be relevant, as in like it said I burnt 300 calories yesterday and it said I burnt 200 calories today. Yesterday's workout was harder and I did burn more calories. Was it 100 calories more? Likely not, but it was more. But that doesn't even matter, because if you get to this place where you eat back where you burned based on what it said that you burned, you've likely wiped out that session and put yourself into a surplus. And here's the other thing. How long would it take you to burn, let's say, 300 calories? Probably like an hour and 15 of a good incline jaunt on the treadmill, or 45 minutes to an hour on the stair climber. How long does it take you to eat 300 calories? Well, we just discovered that a small 3-serving amount of peanut butter is 300 calories. And besides that, like sticking in my mouth, I could probably eat that pretty quick. And an intense cardio session spikes your hunger in a way that walking never would. So you burn 300 calories on the treadmill, you come home ravenous, and you consume 600 calories in a matter of minutes. That math doesn't even math in any kind of math, not girl math, not regular math. And when you do too much cardio eating in a calorie deficit, your body burns your muscle tissue for energy. Less muscle means a slower metabolism. Your metabolism is the rate at which your body burns calories at rest. So you burn the muscle, you slow the metabolism, you make fat loss harder for yourself. Walking 10,000 steps burns 400 to 500 calories a day for the average woman. It doesn't spike your hunger, it doesn't burn your muscle, and you can do it every single day without burning out. Cardio keeps your heart and lungs healthy, but strength training keeps your muscle healthy and your metabolism. More muscle equals higher metabolism, which equals easier fat loss. Bringing me to point 5, under eating protein. Back before I really realized the importance of protein in body composition, I was eating keto. We all know keto is very low carbs, higher fat, and moderate to low, I would say, comparatively to now, protein. And I did this somewhere in my later 20s, and I lost weight, but I looked like a bag of milk. When I actually started tracking my protein, like legitimately tracking it, weighing in grams, and following a progressive overload resistance training program that was properly periodized, that was when everything changed for me. And it took my physique from the look of I'm trying to lose weight to I'm working on my health and fitness. Most women who aren't paying attention eat around 50 to 70 grams of protein a day. The target for fat loss and muscle retention is closer to 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight. So if you're over 200 pounds and you want to weigh 180 pounds as your ideal weight, 180 grams of protein is a much better place to be to facilitate that fat loss for you while retaining your muscle mass. So the gap between 50 to 70 to 180 is like double or triple the amount, and it explains why so many women aren't getting the results that they're looking for. Protein costs more calories to digest than any of the other macros. Your body burns 20 to 30% of the calories in protein just by breaking it down. Fat only costs 3% of the calories, and it's over twice as calorically dense as protein. This means eating more protein actually increases your calorie burn without even adding any exercise. When you're in a deficit without enough protein, your body breaks down the muscle tissue to meet its energy needs. You get smaller, but stay soft, end up looking like a bag of milk. The scale goes down, but when you look at your reflection in the mirror, you're not seeing the body composition changes that you actually want to see. Hit your protein target first for every single meal and build the rest of your plate around that. And if you can't get to your protein goal through food, use a protein shake, one that's at least 20 grams of protein and 3 or less grams of carbs or fat. There's no prize for avoiding the shortcut. And if you can get it through food, of course, do that first. Bringing me to number 6, ignoring that fat cells have a memory. This was something that I didn't know until Coach D, one of the smarter than me coaches in the Badass Babe Squad, informed me. Fat cells are the only cells in your body that have the ability to grow infinitely. I actually just texted her to double check before filming this video, and she was like, yes, that's accurate. And I was like, thank you. And she was like, have you ever seen someone with a bicep muscle that just keeps growing? No, actually that wasn't my answer. It was a different answer, but I digress. So your fat cells, they can just keep growing and growing and growing. And so when you gain weight in the form of fat, the instructions inside of your fat cells are rewritten to grow faster, grow bigger, grow, bigger, more. And when you lose the weight, the cells shrink, but they don't go away, and the programming is still in them. So when you can't keep your extreme diet together anymore, and you've lost muscle mass, maybe you've lost some fat and shrunken those cells a little bit, but you go back to eating the way that you were, or you're eating in a caloric surplus again, and guess what those fat cells do? Grow even bigger. So every time you crash diet, lose weight, can't keep it together, and gain it again, you're not starting from zero. You're actually starting from behind. Your fat cells are more experienced at storing fat than they were the last time. Couple that with you lost muscle tissue from the extreme deficit, lack of protein, and overcardioing and lack of resistance training. You've made your BMR, or basal metabolic rate, your metabolism, even lower because you've lost the muscle mass. And so this yo-yo cycle doesn't just reset, it's actually compounding. Each round of losing and gaining makes the next round of losing harder and gaining faster. This means the most expensive thing that you can do for your body is not just the junk food and the missed workouts. It's the cycle of losing and regaining the same weight or more over and over. Every time you do it, you're training your fat cells to be better at their job, which is growing and storing more fat. And here's the thing, there is currently no drug or treatment that resets your fat cells programming, which means the only way you can win is to stop the lose, gain cycle. Slow, consistent fat loss that you can maintain is not the boring option. It's the only option where you're not making the next round of this problem even worse. Which brings me to number 7, trying to undereat your way out of a sedentary lifestyle, aka sitting on your butt all day and then trying to eat less. But if you're anything like me, if you're just sitting around, you're probably eating or thinking about eating. This happened to me over the course of a while, but I kind of woke up to it about 2 years ago when I started the whole no alcohol, no ice cream, no protein bars, no energy drinks series. I had gotten to a place in my life where I was getting close to 200 pounds again. And although I was prioritizing protein and I was doing my workouts, outside of my workouts, I really wasn't all that active. Like my average steps was probably around 4,000 a day. When you're normally at 10,000, you can go to 4,000. And if 10,000 is like 400 to 500 calorie burn, and I'm down to 4,000, that's like 200 calorie burn, if that. 150 to 200 calorie burn. Couple that with sitting around and more eating occurrences, I'll say, because I'm in the house more and just kind of hanging out, and what else are you gonna do besides snack? And although those snacks might seem healthy, like,
oh, it's just a protein bar, it's got protein, it's good for me.
If you're in a caloric surplus and you're not moving all that much, you're gonna store it as fat, especially if you've been a loser and a gainer, like I just explained to you in point 6. This is exactly why I started the no alcohol, ice cream, energy drinks, protein bar thing, because the alcohol, the ice cream, and the protein bars were just excess calories that I was consuming that I didn't need. Among those things, I started tracking my sleep to make sure I was getting more sleep, and I started increasing my steps back to 10,000 steps a day again. I actually looked at it as 70,000 steps a week because sometimes there's days like today where I'm filming all day that I'll probably only get 7,000 steps. But on other days, like a weekend when I don't have as much going on that I need to be seated in front of a camera for, I can go get 20,000 steps. So that way I don't beat myself up that I only got 7,000 steps today. And I can fill the gap on another day by going for a beautiful hike. When you're under eating and you're underactive, your body adapts to survive on less. The deficit that you had created shrinks on its own without you changing anything. Under eating by 1,000 calories a day over a 6-week period can drop your energy burn by over 12%. Combine that with a sedentary lifestyle, meaning sitting most of the day, and you lose muscle. Research on NEAT, or non-exercise activity thermogenesis, meaning the calories you burn just going about your day, found that the daily calorie burn between an active and a sedentary person can be up to 2,000 calories different. So under eating and sitting all day doesn't just slow your fat loss, they work together to make your body composition worse. You get smaller on the scale, but softer in the mirror. So eat in a 500 calorie deficit, move consistently throughout the entire day as much as you can, not just in your one workout. Walk after meals. It'll help your blood sugar and digestion as well as get steps in. Take the stairs, stand on calls, or get a walking pad if you can and get some steps in. That daily movement is not a workout. It's just the baseline and it changes everything. Bringing me to number 8. Holding on to the identity of a fat person. This last year has been the first time in my adult life that I've maintained the lowest weight on the scale that I've been, the healthiest I've felt, and kept it there over the course of a year. Over a year, actually. The difference now is the way that I make decisions. Primarily being, I focus on how to make my body healthy instead of how to make it smaller or how to make it way less. I often say to our clients in the Badass Babe Squad to make decisions from future self instead of current self. So you envision yourself, where you want to be, where you want to live, what you want your body to look like, all that kind of stuff. The decisions you're making, who's in your life, what's your job, all of that. And then when you're in your day-to-day life, making day-to-day decisions, instead of making them from your current self, think about what that person would do. Because if you make decisions from that person's mindset, that's going to create changes in your life that move you towards that person. But if you continue to make decisions from your current self, it's going to get you more of what you're currently getting. Your identity is what you believe to be true about yourself, who you believe that you are. And that belief runs silently in the background of every decision that you make. If you still see yourself as someone who can't stick to things, someone who gives up, someone who can't do it, someone who's lazy, someone who isn't the kind of person who works out, someone who doesn't deserve success, someone who's afraid of what success looks like and what it would take to maintain it, someone who always gives in, your behavior and your decisions are going to keep proving that to be true. As humans, we want to be right. We want to prove ourselves right, whether you're willing to admit it or not. When's the last time you went to an argument and was like,
I'm going to lose this argument. I'm going to prove myself wrong.
Probably not very often, I'll say. And this isn't because you're broken. It's because your actions and your decisions and your behavior follow your self-image. Research shows that after significant weight loss, old self-perceptions still persist. Even earlier at the gym today, I was looking at myself in the mirror and seeing myself as the old 220-pound me. Sometimes when I go to shop, I still shop in the XXL section, and I'm like, what are you doing? We don't shop here anymore. Old habits die hard. Old identities sometimes die hard. Current identities sometimes die hard. But sometimes where you're going, that current identity can come with you. Let's say like a hermit crab moving to a new shell, or a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. It's messy in the middle and it's ooey and gooey, but when you come out of the cocoon, you have these beautiful wings. A new identity. The gap between the body you have and the identity you're holding on to is where the relapse lives. The people who maintain their fat loss go through an identity shift, myself included. They stop saying, I'm trying to lose weight, and start saying, I'm someone who takes care of my body. The behavior didn't come first. The identity did. Behavior follows belief. I read this thing one time about these two people who were smokers and were quitting smoking. When the first one was offered a cigarette, they said,
No thanks, I'm trying to quit smoking.
But that person is more likely to relapse just by the language and the belief around it. They still identify as a smoker who's trying to quit smoking. Whereas the second one said,
No thank you, I don't smoke.
that person has had an identity shift where they're no longer a smoker. Smoking is not something that they do. Person number 1 is a lot more likely to have their relapse and start smoking again simply by their beliefs about themselves and the way they see themselves. Every decision that you make either reinforces the old identity or builds a new one. You don't eat the protein because you're already fit. You eat it because that's what the person you're becoming does. And repeat it enough, that becomes who you are. So stop describing yourself as someone who is trying and describe yourself as someone who is or someone who does. That single shift in how you talk to yourself changes the choices that your brain puts in front of you, even if it's on a subconscious level. Which brings me to number 9, trying to lose weight instead of trying to lose fat. Not all weight loss is a good thing. There's been times in my life where I've weighed approximately the same, but my body has looked completely different because of my body composition, which was related to the way I was living my life and the focus of trying to lose weight, meaning like I just want this number on the scale to go down, doesn't matter what it takes, and trying to lose fat, whereas I want my body to be fit and healthy and strong and muscular, and the number on the scale doesn't matter to me. And if you want to figure out where your priority in that is, think of it this way. If you thought about your goal weight, whatever it is, you've got a number in your mind. Now tonight, when you go to sleep, I sneak in through the front door and I go to your scale and I mess with it so that when you get on the scale in the morning, it says that number. Now, you turn around from the scale, you rejoice. Yay, I've reached my goal weight. You're happy, excited, but then you turn around and you see your naked body in the mirror and you look exactly the same as you did when you went to bed last night. Would you be happy because of that number on the scale? Or would you be like, I still look the same? If it's the second part, it's not the number on the scale that matters. It's your overall health and fitness level and your appearance, your daily confidence and how you feel about yourself that actually matters to yourself. Your identity about yourself, like we just talked about. It's not the number on the scale. It's not trying to lose weight. It's trying to improve your health. It's trying to improve your quality of life so you show up better. Your body is made up of fat, muscle, water, and bone. When you step on the scale, it measures all of it combined. It cannot accurately tell you what you lost besides weight. And research shows that people losing weight through calorie deficit alone with no thought on your macronutrient ratio, your micronutrients, or your exercise lose 20 to 30% of that weight as muscle, not fat. So the scale goes down, but the reflection gets worse. Every pound of muscle lost slows your metabolism. If a pound of muscle on your body burns 10 calories, a pound of muscle lost from your body loses 10 calories. 10 calories doesn't seem like all that much, but when you look at that in a compounding effect of all the crash diets that you've been doing and losing muscle, you can see where your metabolism is slowly reducing, and it's compounding interest in a way that you don't want it to be. And now you hit 40 and you're like, oh, it's all downhill from there. I hit 40 and it was over. When it's not the one moment, like the click, and now you're 40 and your metabolism ruined. It's all of the choices you made up until that point that were compounding in a negative way that made it seem like, oh my God. Let me tell you about compounding interest for a second. Now, I'm not that smart, but this is a way that's going to teach it to you in a way that I think might click for you. Even if you take a penny, 1 cent, and you double that every day, I believe by the time you hit like 30 days, somewhere in there, you have $1 million. Now, that started from 1 penny. And the first day went from 1 penny to 2 pennies, which isn't that big of a difference. And the next day it goes from 2 pennies to 4 pennies, which again, not that big of a difference. By the time you're getting closer to $1 million, the day before $1 million, you're only at $500,000. Then all of a sudden, the next day, you're on $1 million. So $500,000 difference is a whole lot more than 1. That is how you explain compounding interest. So every time you're crash dieting and losing muscle and then gaining fat back, you're setting yourself up for compounding interest in a negative way. 40 years later, it seems like, well, I just had the metabolism of when I was 20 and now all of a sudden it's just terrible. It's compounding interest. You didn't fail. Nothing changed overnight. You progressively damaged the engine. But the good thing is, it's not too late and you're not too old. So stop only setting a goal weight. Define what you want your body to look like and what you want it to be capable of. Losing fat means specifically targeting the reduction of body fat while protecting your muscle. That requires eating enough to fuel activity and lifting enough to signal to your body that muscle is needed. And hitting your protein goal gives your body the material to maintain it. The scale might move slower, but the changes in the mirror are real. 2 people can weigh exactly the same and look completely different. Or, like me, you could weigh the same at different times in your life, but look completely different. One lost fat and kept muscle, and one lost muscle and kept fat. The scale can't tell that apart. It just tells you the weight. You have to know what you're actually trying to change before you start, or you'll look at the wrong thing and call it progress. Define what you want your body to look like. Fill out an application for coaching with the Badass Babe Squad so we can help you lose 20 pounds in 12 weeks. It's linked below. If you're not ready for that yet, that's okay too. I'll still carry on. Then build the identity and the habits that create that body. The number between your feet when you look down in the morning has never told the full story, and it never will. These are the 9 mistakes to never make if you want to get fit as heck. But watch this video next to learn about the only way to lose visceral fat.